Thank you for tuning in to the World Builders Anvil, Season 2, Episode 27. Another greatest hits episode. This one is one of my favorites. It's when Jeff and I discuss bad guys.
Today's topic are dishonorable mentions. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. Welcome back. As always, my name is Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And covered in axle grease, I am Michael Miller.
Excellent. Another fun night out in the town for Michael.
Nah, just got a break job I have to do. That's what I'm doing tomorrow.
Oh, excellent. Oh, that's like real world work?
That's from you. That's from you.
Could you turn your sound off, sir?
Hey, is your sound on? Yeah, it is. Good call. Thank you. I'll turn that off so no one can hear that shit. You just leave that. Just leave that in the show. So that was Jeff testing to see if my cell phone audio was still on, and it was. So sorry, guys.
The better thing to do than ask is ask during the recording via a text.
Right. Hey, is your text message audio on? Ba-ding!
All right. Let's hop in here to our dishonorable mentions. And there'll be nothing lame. Michael's not allowed to call Mike out here. Just actual real villains that we spent over 4 years researching this one episode topic because there's so many good villains out there.
Yeah, Jeff actually called me 2 years prior to starting the show to ask me to start. Before he, yes, so I've actually 3 years prior. I like how you want to take credit for this. This one was my idea.
This was just sort of a quick idea at the end of our last recording session. Yeah. And we both thought it was a great. To me, I found this very, very difficult.
You know what? I did too. I came up with all of mine like yesterday. Like I've been thinking about them all week.
Yes. And I had to narrow it down from about 50,000. And the problem is, to me, it's kind of like your favorite song. So at a point, you have to go, what do I feel now for my favorite villains? Because there's some, and there's kind of a pattern to them here. One of mine does break that pattern, but the rest of them fit it pretty well. But yeah, so let's get right into today's topic, our dishonorable mentions, or the villains we dislike the most.
Or like to dislike, or dislike to like. Or
yes,
or like, or they're the worst, they're the best, they're the worst.
Wait, is this the honorable mentions? Because villains.
Well, I said to come up with honorable or dishonorable mentions because the premise was to pick our 3 favorite villains, and I additionally came with some extras that are the dishonorable mentions. But we are talking about 3 best, worst villains?
Yeah.
So what do you say? Are they the best? Or are they the worst?
Or maybe neither. They're just our favorite.
Mine are in order. Are yours in order? Or are they yours in order? No particular order. So third.
Mine are in reversed order. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, that's me too. All right, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first? Your audio is on! I can't believe you! I cannot believe you! That was Jeff's cell phone.
I don't know what you're talking about. That probably won't come through the audio. Wait, you heard it though?
Yeah, I heard it.
Crap.
If I heard it, it's on mic.
What jerk turned that sound on?
Right. I should have texted you back.
That would have been even funnier. Okay, so welcome once again to a World Builders Anvil After Dark, even though it's getting towards summer.
Yeah, it is. It's still light out. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first, and just so I can set the tone, but
I want to talk about each one. I don't want to just list them off.
Yeah. This one's so good, we might just have to end the show on it, though.
No.
I think it's that good.
I got some good ones. All right, go ahead.
No, Mariner from the movie that shall not be named.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, he was vicious. Like, there's a quote I have of his here. The things on my boat. What? I mean, what kind of person says that? I mean, that's just wrong.
Tell me that is not a serious third pick for you.
That's not a serious third pick.
In case you haven't, in case you didn't quite catch what he said the Mariner. This is a reference to Waterworld.
And just so you know, actually, when we came up with the episode topic, the first thing I did was research the protagonist name from there. And actually, I'm a big fan of Kevin Costner's. I don't blame him for the movie, but yeah.
I'm waiting for the last one in the trilogy. I'm waiting for his last post-apocalyptic closer. So you've got Waterworld, you've got The Postman. I want a third Kevin Costner post-apocalyptic movie.
He did do one. Didn't he do The Road?
Road? That's Viggo Mortensen.
Oh, Viggo Mortensen. That one was pretty good.
How could you confuse those two?
The heroic chin.
Oh, my nose.
The heroic chin.
I have no idea what
the heroic chin.
Heroic chin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I think Viggo Mortensen's got Kevin Costner beating the chin department. His chin's pretty freaking heroic.
He's got the chin of two men, and not in like a overweight kind of way.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And not in a Bruce Campbell or Jay Leno kind of way either. Because Bruce Campbell's got a hell of a chin too.
Yes, they do. Both of them do actually, but
all three unique.
Yeah, all three unique. All right. So
who's your serious?
Actually, I'll let you go. I'll let you go first here.
You are gonna let me go first?
Yep.
Okay. So before we get into this, if you've already heard it, because I may actually have Jeff and I record at the end of the show spoilers for the following properties. But at the same time, part of me doesn't want to do that because I don't want you to know what we're gonna say until we say it. But I am gonna give you at least a warning that there are going to be spoilers in this episode for certain properties. So
we will say the character, where they're from, and there might or might not be spoilers when we talk about each of the individual characters.
Correct. So my number 3 pick is the Joker.
A particular Joker or just the Joker in general? Because this is one that was high on my list.
Well, I fall back on the comic book Joker. And even the comic book Joker, there are a variety of versions. Yeah. So like Batman, who changes throughout the years, the Joker does too.
Yeah.
So I am using an all-encompassing blanket over the Joker for the different things that he's done. The Joker,
in each of those personas?
Yes. The Joker is an all-in villain type. He is a social / psychopath. Mm-hmm. That is, he's a constant reminder of Batman's own psychosis. And I have shared this one. I may have shared this on the show before. There is a, I don't remember the book, which is to say, when I say book, I'm referring to comic book, the actual comic book that was printed. I don't know what book it was from, but my brother has a compilation graphic novel of a bunch of short Batman stories. And one of them is this fantastic story about Batman. He's basically someone. Stop me if I've said it on the show before, because I may have.
Not in this episode, just say it.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Just say it.
Okay. So Batman is on the case of tracking down a criminal who has a thief who has, or thieves who have broken into Gotham's high-end rich peoples and stolen stuff. Well, he is Bruce Wayne. So spoiler alert. So they have. They have broken into Wayne Manor and stolen something. That's all you know throughout the entirety of the story, is that they stole something that Bruce is really dead set on getting back. He has got a vested personal interest in this particular crime. So he's going after these guys as if they murdered a orphanage. Like, he is Seriously, like he's kicking in mobsters' doors. He's beating the crap out of guys in bars. He's been up for like 2 days straight. He's like on the comms with Alfred. He's like, "When's the last time you ate?" And he's like, "I'll get something later." He's like, "When's the last time you slept?" He's like, "I'll sleep when it's done." He's like, "You know what they took. You know what they stole." All said and done, at the end of the story, when you finally find out what was stolen, here you are. You've got Batman. All he's wearing is the Batman pants. He's taken the cowl off. He's taken the shirt off. So he's topless. And what you discover that he's stolen, what the thieves took, and what he has recovered, is this ornate choo-choo train. And it was the last Christmas gift that his parents gave to him before he was dead, before they were killed. Yeah. So here he is on his knees in his childhood room that remains as it was since his parents died. And he's on his knees, bawling his eyes out about having recovered this choo-choo train. And that is just a great example of how messed up Batman is. Mm-hmm. So the Joker is a constant reminder of how messed up he is. Like he's a very screwed up person. Like it is not the decision of a sane person to dress up in a costume and fight crime dressed as a bat. Like, if you want to fight crime, you become a lawyer. You become a police officer. Like, this is not the choice of a sane person. But he's also, the Joker is also a reminder of all of Batman's failings. The failings to those closest to him. His parents, because the Joker kills parents, as well as divides families. His own family, the Bat family, the Joker killed Jason Todd. He crippled Barbara Gordon. Because the Batman refuses to kill the Joker, in most storylines, I will admit there's a couple where he does, he allows this perpetual cycle of mayhem and ruin that the Joker leaves in his wake. So not only is the Joker a fantastic villain, but in the context of the story, the negligence of Batman to close the deal on this particular villain just perpetuates horror throughout the story.
Yeah, I mean, that was not one that I did pick. However, that was one I really wrestled with. And you brought up the storyline because the killing joke is probably one of the better Batman stories ever written, where it was a couple issues long. It was the Joker was at a near peak Jokerness, and
that's Alan Moore. That's why that story is so good. That was Alan Moore.
And that Joker in particular was sort of really close to the top of my list. Is not completely as sort of anarchist psychotic as like the one from the movie, which I thought was very good. And there've been several great renditions. The Joker from the original animated Batman series, the Mark Hamill character.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, and I don't know if it was Alan Moore who did the death of Jason Todd as well too.
I don't think so. I think that.
But that was also another great Joker. Yeah. That was another great Joker story, and that was one where Batman was going to go over the edge, and it literally took. What the?
Jeff, turn the phone off too. Jeff is away from the microphone. He's going to discover this audio when he edits. Jeff is being a tool because he forgot to shut his household phone audio off. Thank you, Jeff, for ruining the show.
That's right. Stop talking.
Huh? What are you talking about? I didn't say nothing.
Oh
you were saying Jason Todd and Batman almost going over the edge.
Yeah. So, and Batman, really almost went over the edge of that story, and it took Superman to literally hold him back from doing it. And I think they even got into sort of the whole Iranian problems at the time, and like the Joker went to the UN to speak for Iran and was going to gas the UN, and they ended up like having to stop him doing that. But it was just he's a story who comes up, and sometimes it's like he comes across goofy and should not, and in a way it's like, there's a tendency to sort of underrate him, but when his stuff just always falls into place the way it does. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just like there's a sort of genius behind it, you know, mm-hmm. and you never really know how much of it is act or if it's not an act at all. You assume it's not, but it might just be a really good act. But in a way, to me, he's always been the opposite of Batman. The Batman, if Batman goes over the line, he turns into the Joker.
What I love is in the Heath Ledger version of Batman, he's like, he's like, I don't plan things. You know, I'm like a dog chasing a car. Like if I caught the car, I wouldn't know what to do with it. And it's like, well, no, because everything he does to pull it off, and especially in that movie, had to be calculated meticulous. It had to be calculated meticulously. So that's what I love is stuff like that. The Killing Joke is interesting that you mentioned that, because what he does in the Killing Joke, the story of the Joker, how his origin is that he became the Joker because of one bad day, really bad day, and his goal is to see that if he can repeat that process on Jim Gordon. How can I make Jim Gordon go insane like me by giving him the worst day of his life? That's his goal. So,
and he did a good job
not a nice guy.
Trying.
Yeah. The other story that I really liked was I think it was just called Arkham Asylum, and it's basically and the video game was definitely modeled after this book. The inmates take over Arkham, and the only thing that they hold hostages, they hold the medical staff hostage, and the only thing they want is Batman. And in the beginning, Batman's afraid, and of course the Joker's at the center of it. He's the one who's behind it all, and he's on the microphone talking how he's going to push a pencil into the eye of a nurse, and you can hear the nurse screaming and terrified while he's talking, and he's telling her, "Shh, it's okay, be quiet," you know. But he's telling Batman, "I'm going to push this pencil through her eye if you don't come inside." And Batman's afraid to go in. And he's talking to Gordon on the outside, and he's like, "I don't blame you. I'd be afraid to go in there too." He's like, "You don't understand. I'm not afraid to go in because of what's in there. I've put them there. I'm not afraid of them. I'm afraid to go in there because I feel like it's going to feel like going home. Like he belongs in there."
Yeah.
So.
And usually Batman does belong in there, but that's a different story.
That is a different story. So the Joker is my number 3 pick. Yeah. Who's yours?
All right.
Unless you've got more to add to the Joker.
No. I think that's good. I don't think anybody will be able to be covered as much because they're not in the range of fiction like a character like the Joker is. But
did you not pick the Joker because you thought I might?
No.
Okay.
It was just one of those where I decided on a kind of a pattern of villains that I did not like. And we'll talk about that as we get into them, but I kind of went away from the obviously psychotic ones. Those are good choices because there are a lot of those I could think of that I really dislike in fiction. But as it hit me this week, it was more like that doesn't bug me as much as ... Mm-hmm. And my first example is Annie Wilkes.
That name sounds so familiar.
Yes, because when I say where she's from a Stephen King movie.
Are you looking it up because you forgot?
I forgot the movie.
I don't want you to edit anything out of this episode.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm perfectly sane. The one
Misery.
with the journal
Misery.
Or the Misery. Thank you, Jesus. Yes, because we're going to tell you what title they're in.
I had a mouthful of water there, and I was like, "Oh wait, it's Misery! It's Misery!" Annie Wilkes, of course.
Yeah, it's one of those that's so obvious that was like escaping my mind.
Good choice. Good choice.
It's not just because she tortures an author, and that bugs me as a guy who wants to release books. And really, the kind of the quote that came to my mind was, "God came to me last night and told me the purpose, I have it written down so I can't screw it up."
Your window closed on you?
Okay. "God came to me last night and told me your purpose for being here. I'm going to help you write a new book." And one of the issues of the story is the delivery, especially in the movie, was brilliant. And the thing is, and it kind of symbolizes her because where she is a psychotic like Joker, you don't know what she's going to do. In a way, she premeditates it. In a way, she does not. You know, sometimes it seems to be coming out of a place of anger, but you're not really sure how much of it's thought ahead or not. You don't know. But she seems like a person you can meet with, sit on her front porch, talk to her, have a great day, and go home.
Yeah, like you have no idea what she's capable of. Like, as it unfolds, you're like, oh no, is she really going to do that? And then it gets worse.
Yeah. Yes, and it just keeps getting worse. And you're like, when you first are introduced to the character, she's just sort of this nice person who you might meet if you got to the country. And for me, I visited the country a lot as a child. I grew up in cities and suburbs, but I had grandparents.
I didn't think they had those in Indiana.
Well, it's because you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, but we would go visit my grandmother down in a town called Prairiton, which is probably what you think of as Indiana. Like, watch the movie Hoosiers with my mother. She knows most of the basketball teams that they were playing against because her high school did, and they drove her nuts. And so they were hometown refs in that gym. Oh my goodness, my mom would go off watching that movie. But it was really funny. But the thing was, she is like one of those people you could sit there and meet and drink tea with at my Nana's table. But, you know, it's like you're just like the wrong person at the wrong time, and the depths of the depravity. I mean, one of the most painful scenes I've ever watched in a movie.
And I wonder if I choose to believe that it's worse in the movie than it is in the book. Yeah.
Well, I think psychologically it's worse in the book probably, but like her face, she. And I don't remember the name of the actress, but she became famous for this
Kathy
part.
Bates.
Kathy Bates. Oh, that's a funny last name for a horror queen in a movie.
Right.
Do you have a son?
No, that would be Norma. Do you have an aunt? Norma's his mother. Norma is his mother's name. Norma Bates.
You're going to trust him from the narrative sense? Come on.
I watched the show.
The show doesn't count.
The show is fantastic. The show is.
I'm sure it is.
It's excellent. As a matter of fact, I wish I'd have thought of that. Norman's a great character.
Norman was another one who I had thought about. I mean, Hitchcock had a couple. I mean, there's just so many good choices. But the reason it's like, you know, it's just one of those things where it's like very rare you'd ever beat someone who's a psychopath, or a sociopath. But either one, if you're in the right conditions, you wouldn't know it. And the thing I love about her as a villain is, I believe if you had met her up until the end of the first third of the book, you wouldn't have thought she was a villain. And maybe not quite a third, but you know, the introduction of the character portion, she's introduced as this everyday kind of person. And this is not the everyday kind of person you want to meet.
No, definitely not. This is like the Jeff Ingram of everyday people.
Yes, Mike. Okay.
Michael. My number 2 pick, and I am doing something I really hope that our listeners know this movie as well as I do, so they can follow me on the journey that I'm going to take them.
Are you going to say Bubba Hotep?
No, but that's also a great choice. So my number 2 villain is the devil himself.
The devil himself.
Lucifer.
Which movie? I mean,
as portrayed in The Usual Suspects, represented by Kaiser Soze.
Who's Kaiser Soze?
Exactly. So, follow me on this. This is my interpretation. Okay?
So you're going to BS something up here to make him a really bad
Well,
movie.
I am a fiction writer, so I lie.
Touche.
In the movie The Usual Suspects, the character Kaiser Soze is the devil. He is Lucifer. he takes on the mantle of Cersei as well as the mantle of Verbal Kint for fun. He also takes on the mantle of other humans and non-humans throughout history. In the case of the usual suspects, he's assisting one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, war specifically, to move weapons into Pakistan. This is mentioned in the movie, as well as, actually, he is moving steel and narcotics in and out of Pakistan, as well as moving gun parts into Belfast. Again, in the 90s, Belfast was a hotbed of violent activity.
Yep.
So, he is assisting war to help usher in the apocalypse. You know, he's helping the other four horsemen of the apocalypse as well, but in this particular movie, this is what they're referencing. Mm-hmm. So, he is helping to move weapons into Pakistan, as well as enrich certain power-wielding terrorist organizations in the Middle East by helping to enable their drug trading throughout the world. Hiding his identity, which is one of the main points of the movie, is not a priority for him throughout the movie. This was simply a bit of fun for him. The priority was getting all the drugs and all the cash off of the boat before blowing it up, thus using those resources to further his larger goals of war in the Middle East and subsequently the world by creating more powerful factions in an already unstable region of the world. Mm-hmm. There's a grand manipulation going on here, but the movie is just focusing on a bit of fun that he's having in the process. Now, I could jump into all kinds of other movies and fictions as well, but you can pick on your favorite. I know one of Jeff and ours favorite is Something Wicked This Way Comes. And
that was a tough one to pass by.
And see, I love it. And while that character is not called the devil in the movie, I think we can all agree that he is an incarnation of. He is one wearing the mantle. So my pick for number 2 is Kaiser Soze, is Verbal Kint, is Lucifer, the devil himself.
Well, I like the TV show Lucifer, so I don't consider Lucifer a villain anymore. Okay.
I've watched a little bit of that show. As per Jorn Kristen's recommendation, I have liked it, but I haven't gotten back to it. I've watched like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's definitely one worth watching. It's a different take on sort of the biblical mythology, but it's interesting, and it's based off of the Lucifer that came out of the Sandman series from Neil Gaiman.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it a direct? Is it a direct like pull, or they just kind of loosely like?
I think he showed up in the Massive Sandman story, and then someone created a series for Vertigo Comics afterwards, strictly about him. And I don't know if it's a direct pull from that series or an extension from that series, but. It directly descends from the Sandman series, which is the closest we've ever gotten to Sandman.
The other incarnation that I'm a huge fan of, if you want to speak, since we're doing all this comic book talk, I'm reminded of Angry Christ Comics by Cirrus. Did a whole after he did Cry for Dawn, he did this whole bit with Dawn recovering Lucifer's halo. Basically, God sends Dawn to recover Lucifer's halo. Like, give me that back, because you are a fallen angel. You don't get to have that anymore. And it's a great story. Yeah. Amazing artwork. Amazing artwork.
Yeah. Now, my next number 2 on my list, and this one is a little bit more modern. This is my most modern choice. It is Dolores Umbridge, or Professor Umbridge from Harry Potter.
Good choice.
And the thing was, once again, it's the thing where if you look at her from a distance, she looks like this nice old lady. Nice old ladies who are bad guys really bother me because I like my nana.
I was going to say, I'm seeing a theme here.
But the thing on top of it was, and part of this is like sort of like Michael's second pick, is it's somewhat my own biases from the outside leaking into this movie and adding possible stuff to it that's not. There's a couple quotes that I can think of, but the one that really stuck with me, there's like the punishing. She likes to talk about punishing children and disliking children throughout it. So she has some good quotes there, but it's just like the thing is like things at Hogwarts are far worse than I feared. And to me, the way she's dressed, her age, it kind of applied to me these people who like to dictate the behavior of others and enforce their will on other people. as a truly villainous bunch, even if they come at it from a sense of good intentions, which I don't think she did, but she could have come at it from a different direction and been a bad guy out of reality, out of her actions. But the thing was, it's the sort of 50s pink, the Leave It to Beaver style mother who's aged up and becomes just a horribly sick villain who you want to die. And I don't typically, for even villains, I don't go there, but Dolores Umbridge needed to die. And I think this is probably the most villainous character in the series, and not as over the top as some of them, but just downright nasty.
Yeah, and it's that, and that's saying something considering who you're comparing her against. Voldemort. Exactly. What's his name? The white-haired dude.
Lucian or something like that.
Yeah, Lucian. Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, there's quite a trio. But for her, it's like she had this prim and proper appearance, but and it's like, I'm here for order. Yeah. And but
some sort of satanic Mary Poppins.
Exactly. That's another good talk on her.
So like from the Order of Chattering Nuns there, the from Good Omens.
I never heard of that. Especially not that other book that he wrote or that series I just talked about of his.
I know those. I'm telling you though, you've read Good Omens, right?
I have no idea either one of the authors of that book. Or that that's even a book. I don't even know that's a book. Is that a book?
Is that a book? I don't have much to add to that. I mean, that's a great choice. I would not have come up with that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think especially Joker's one we could talk about I think for 3 episodes. But it's like mine. It's the thing about them that makes them really evil. And some of their actions are bad, and some of the things that they say are bad, but it's the presentation of them. Because it's that they jar against my brain's desire to like figures that look like that, and I think that's why those two worked really well. Even though I will warn you, my next one will break the mold.
My next one's pretty amazing too, but my next one. So I'm trying to decide who should reveal their first one first.
You have to.
I do. Okay.
Yeah.
My next one, I'm purposely going to be very vague about, and the reason for it, the other 2 properties that I mentioned, obviously Batman, Batman's the Joker, the usual suspects, this Kaiser Soze, these properties have made their money. These properties, I don't feel bad about spoiling. They're very old at this point. You guys have been exposed to them. If you haven't, you still can, and probably for free. This next one is one that I really hope that you will go out and buy. Not just because a friend of mine wrote it, because I am not exaggerating when I tell you that this is the greatest villain I have ever read. And that is from the book Luminous by my friend Dawn Metcalf. Now, I'm not going to tell you who the villain is because the villain is a reveal. But what I will say about the villain is that this villain is probably the most layered villain that I've ever been exposed to. This character is driven, is calculating, malicious, bloodthirsty, merciless, motivated, and best of all, justified. It's one of these characters that you're like, oh, when you finally, 1, when they reveal who it is, and then 2, when they reveal the why. And by they, I mean she. When she reveals the why, you're like, oh, you don't see it coming. It is so excellent. The character, like the main character, the character who you are on this journey through is great, but that villain, for me, makes the book.
It's not the show? Wow.
Oh, I love that. I love that character.
That's a pattern for villains I love a lot, which is... And it works, but it's not as powerful to hate the villain if you know it up front. That there's a justification.
Like this villain makes Darth Vader look like a Girl Scout.
Wow.
Seriously.
Okay. So we have one for Luminous. Okay. And this is my last one. And it's probably good we can finish on this because we can talk about this property a little bit. It's an older property. I think it's been out of commission for about 15 years at this point, maybe 18, maybe 20. I don't know. It's been a while. And normally, if you would bring up a character archetype like this and discuss them with me, I would argue all day long with you that they should not be considered a bad villain. And the name of the character is Milch Oppenheimer. He is one of the 6 generals from Suikoden 1.
I can't believe you went there. I thought about this. I was like, is he going to go with someone from Suikoden? Oh, you're too much.
And there are actually several good choices in Suikoden to go with.
Now, wait. If you share this, it's a big spoiler. So,
yes, we were for a game that came out in like 1996.
Hang on, it was probably more like 1993. If you guys,
I can spoil it 3 times.
Hang on,
but I have to spoil it.
If you guys plan on playing Suikoden, and we just talked about it, I realize you're going to listen to this like 3 weeks later, but we literally just talked about Suikoden on the Undercroft group. But if you plan on playing that game, because you can get it on emulators, it's on the original PlayStation 1, it is an amazing game. But stop listening now. Just fast forward like 5 minutes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right. So he is thrown off as this villain who has a very his facade when you're introduced to him is sort of this floppish, fashion is all he cares about kind of character, and probably a character who early on in the story you're not going to respect much. And like some of the other 6 generals are all like super honorable people, and a lot of them are fighting against this entire idea that they believe that what they're doing is wrong, but their duty to country is outweighing what they think is the right thing to do. And
king.
Yeah. As you get closer to battling this evil, vile person, what happens is you come to find out he's actually a very smart, clever person who is probably using that completely as a facade to be underestimated, and he probably uses that to his advantage to win battles.
I would agree with that. I think he's Machiavellian.
He ends up being the most clever villain in the first game. He's not the most powerful, but he is the most clever. He traps and kills Gremio. And in one of the most heartbreaking scenes in a freaking video game. And what makes it worse is that's not enough punishment for Jeffrey. So when you capture,
I love that you're telling this story.
When you capture these generals, you have the option to execute them. And I did not execute any of them up to this point. I forget which one he was, but he was somewhere in the middle, kind of closer to the end, I believe.
Yeah, he was like number 3, I think. 3 or 4.
And I sat there and I was excited. I got him, and without hesitation, I pressed the button to execute the piece of garbage. And usually this is the kind of villain I can identify with, and I could say I can respect him, and he's a villain of circumstance. He's not a villain because he's a villain. And so these are ones I usually argue with that shouldn't be, they're not a pure villain. But with that act and the great delivery the game did and doing it, which was amazing how much like emotion they could pack into a 2D sprite-based game. But they really sock it to you. And if you really play the game, you can't get out of it. The guy dies. But the problem is, if you get to the end of the game, you have 107 out of 108 stars, and the story ends.
Let me throw a little backstory so they understand the gravity, the nature of how much this messed with you specifically, because I know the game follows the mythology of the 108 stars. This is a Chinese mythology. And the 108 stars of these destined people that are deemed these stars, okay? You got to understand, this game came out in a time period when most role-playing games you had 4, maybe 6, maybe 12 characters. In your party, you'd only have 4 or 6. Like that was this game. You had 6. That was a big deal. Most games had 4, but this game had a full 108 characters that you could collect and put into your party. Well, here's the thing. Gremio is your best friend and manservant. He raised you as a child, and you play through the entirety of the game, and he is very protective of you. He stands between you and danger left and right throughout the tale. And when you get to this point in the game, this general actually tries to kill your entire party. But Gremio pushes everybody through a door and seals it shut with him on the side of the danger. It's the only way that he could save everybody. And he dies. The mechanic of the game is, if you get to the end of the game and you have collected every character, you have 107 of the 108, the 108th being Gremio, who has died. So keep going.
And so I get to the end, and the general is one of the 108 stars, and I kill him, so I end up having a 106 with one dead one. And so I have this ending, which you feel good because you beat the bad guys, and they're bad guys, and you want to beat them. And you could probably argue for the witch Wendy to be a top villain maybe as well too. But I don't put her there. I put him there. And not only because of the power of that moment and just great storytelling by whoever put that story together, just did an amazing job. But and the delivery of it was good too. But when you get to the end, and then you find out because like the internet and stuff that, if you've recruited all of them and the only one who's dead is Gremio, then at the end they'll bring him back to life. So then I had to go back and play the entire game again and not kill him, which made him even more villainous in my brain. And maybe it's the developers who I should be calling the villains here, but to get to the end and bring him back to life. And then you got a cool little cameo in the next Suikoden, which was in a different place, and those characters weren't the stars in that one, but they made a cameo, both of them, if you had the saved game of Suikoden 1 with him alive.
The other real cool thing mechanically about that game is you have all 108 characters, and there are these grand battles that you have that play out like rock, paper, scissors. You pick, archery, infantry, or cavalry, and then your little guys run up against each other, and people die, and you slowly win that battle or not. And that occurs every time you fight a general. You can lose permanently almost any one of your characters in those fights. If you lose one and you get to the end of the game, you will not get the good ending because you've lost a character. No. Not only do you have to collect all 108, and you can beat the game without collecting them all. There's tons of characters that have. I've got a spreadsheet that I made in 1993.
Yes, this is a game of spreadsheets. Yes.
Yeah, I made a spreadsheet of what characters were where and you got to realize that there was, the internet was fledging at that point. You can look this stuff up now, but you couldn't look this stuff up easily. You had to figure it out. So I had all these lists. I wrote all out how to get each character and what you needed to do, and it was what level you needed to be at.
I do remember some of them. I believe also if you didn't get them at the time, you couldn't go back.
Yep.
So, I mean, and then there were some that were just in hidden spots.
Yep.
And really, you could just stick with the same core characters and blow through the game and not even try and recruit all of them. And you could. And the thing is, when you go through the final sequence, though, you get punched in the gut because your friend's not there.
Yeah.
And like I said, this is like not only your best friend, but in a way, he was like your nanny too.
Yeah, that's a good description.
So, it's like, and they did a good job selling that, and they did a good job, and because of that, him not letting you make him stay at home, and then he willingly sacrificed himself for you, which you knew he would have. And this game has always been a little devilish because they've never had issues with doing mean things to characters you like. He is not the only character you like that will die in these, or the only bad thing to happen to characters you like. But boy, will he. So they great storytelling. At least in the first three, I really enjoyed. Kind of past that, they kind of lost what made the game cool. But games series sometimes do that, and I would love them to bring back a classic game like that. But it also proved too, because like it was sort of out at the same time where you have like Final Fantasy VII, which Sephiroth with his killing scene of an important character, to me is a comparable moment.
Very.
To me, in a way, the delivery's a little bit better because of the bigger budget. It looked better at the time. The music was better with it. But overall, the impact for me was always more powerful from this sprite-based game at the end of sprite-based games. So,
yeah, it was great. I have a few honorable mentions. Do you have a couple?
I could probably come up with some, but not really.
Okay.
Like I said, I had 50,000. I had to narrow it down. I can't add a few back in.
You can add a couple back in. I got a couple I'm saying. So, one, zombies. All zombies. And, look, I'm writing a zombie book. So, zombies.
Hit that man with a crowbar.
Right. Cersei from Game of Thrones. Cersei almost made my top three. Now, the reason
that's a really good one. Yeah.
Because she is a character that you loathe. You root against her and hate her with so much passion, but there is also times where you have such compassion for what she's been through, and you root for her too. Like, there, depending on the arc and which season you're in, and obviously which book you're in if you're reading the books, there are parts in that where you'll be rooting for Cersei, and you'll be like, oh yeah, go, like what she's doing against the church and all this stuff. But you also revile her at other points.
I won't spoil that one, but I want to, but I won't.
Because you've read the books?
She's a great... Well, they're past the books now.
Well, I know that, but I didn't know what you were referring to as a spoiler.
There's a point, and
you don't have to get specific.
I'm not going there. So, but she's another one. I definitely would have to put her in there because she's definitely a villain. Definitely right from the very first episode, and really throughout, even when you're kind of rooting for her, you still know she's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And in a way, it would have been better if she lost, but it was sweet justice for her once too. So,
yeah. My other honorable mention or dishonorable mention would be Revan from Knights of the Old Republic. Revan is such a powerful Sith Lord that he would go and swallow all the life on a planet. That's how powerful he was. He would go to an entire planet with different peoples all over it, and he would swallow all life. That's ridiculous. That is one evil Sith Lord. That is one nasty villain.
All right, for my honorable mention, I'm just going to throw one out there, and I'll go kind of old school here because I don't like going too new because then I can spoil stuff, and I have no remorse for it. I would say Saruman.
Saruman?
Yeah, because he should have been a good guy, but his lust for power, that flaw in men, led him to betraying the good guys.
The irony is that he's not a man. He is portrayed as a man.
Okay, you're gonna go because he's a wizard kind of bullcrap, and yes, it's a different race and token.
Nope. If you get into the background of the five wizards, they were actually, and I'm using an interpretive.
The wizard as a race, yeah.
No, before they were wizards. I would call them planeswalkers, and they were sent to Middle Earth to become wizards, and they were told that they would be stripped of power and knowledge when they became wizards. And they asked the entity that was Gandalf was actually the last one to arrive in Middle Earth. He had just come back from a journey and said, I don't want to go. He was actually reluctant to go. Saruman, the entity that became Saruman, was the first. And he was like, you know what? I will go help. I will help the people of Middle Earth. And
yes. And you can argue and say, yes, I know technically that's a different race of species, but it was representative story-wise as a man failing because of his lust for power. That was the story being told with him.
Which
and
was
corrupted him.
Which was a common theme in Tolkien.
Yeah. Oh, almost definitely. That's like one of the major themes that you get banged over the head with several times. But is an important thing to talk about, because if you understand where his background was, you got where his perspective was coming from. So that would be my honorable mention. I have to go fantasy old school there.
It's a good one. It's a good choice.
All good choices today, I think, except for your second. You're taking away my first one, and I had to fall back. So
what?
I'll leave Mariner as an honorable mention.
Mariner. All right. Well, what's the world builder task of the day? Okay,
the world building task of the day is come to the facebookgroups.com. I'm sorry, facebook.com/groups/Undercroft, and let us know from either your game telling days or your fiction writing days who the favorite villain you've ever created is.
And while we're talking about the Undercroft group, I have actually been listening to Seize the GM for the past couple of days. And I'm going to recommend you guys go take a look at Seize the GM podcast if you're looking to do some tabletop role-playing and you're not a GM but would like to be one. These guys give you some great stuff on how to do it. It's a fun show. And Derek in our community is one of the hosts of that show.
Yeah, and I like to say that, yes, and since I gave him a shout out like twice a month ago, welcome to the game. And
welcome to the game.
Yeah, I know I did talk about them like a month ago, but he's right though. It's a great show, and especially the thing I like about them is like I chose a system when I game master that allows me to just show off my world. And it doesn't interfere with my world, but it's still a good system, which I like systems in role playing. Now, the thing I like about them is they have a lot of experience over different RPGs. So, sometimes, people just want to tell a story in a system, and there are a lot of great genres and a lot of great games, and these guys seem to have played in several and have experience in several. So, definitely a worthwhile show. And now for the real world task of the day. Would you like to give us the real world task of the day, Michael?
Yeah, look, while we're talking about villains, almost everybody, I believe, that follows the show is a writer on some level. So if you are going to make one of these iconic villains, you need to know how they think. So what I want you to do is go out there and become a villain, go do horrible things in the world, and, that way you'll know how to... What?
Hold on, my lawyer just texted me. Luckily, I turned the sound off.
I was going to say, I didn't hear that. Well, let me know what he said later. So what I want you to do is go cause absolute mayhem.
No.
Just learn how...
He wants me to interject something here. The real world task presented today is the opinion of Michael Miller and is not necessarily the opinion of the World Builders Anvil or Ingram Digital Media, because we would never endorse people becoming villains.
All right. Well, look, if you're not going to become one, at least think about it. Get into the mind of a villain. Sit around and let crazy creep in.
Yeah, and I think it's really important when you're storytelling, your villains, they need to be as well developed as protagonists. Even if they're not a classic villain and that you just consider them an antagonist, they're usually. But sometimes villains don't get the kind of development they deserve. But you owe it to yourself to develop them, and you don't need to justify their actions. You can still make them crazy, but go buck wild and get into that character development.
I would like to say it a little differently and say that you owe it to your audience to develop them. Because for me, like when you got a flat, like you spend tons of times with these heroes and they're running around the world on these grand quests. And if you just bump up against, I am a bad guy and I want to take over the world, but they don't have a reason, like they're just evil for evil's sake.
Yeah, like the things on my boat. What? I mean, just evil like that.
Yeah, like I want some reason. Like a well-reasoned bad guy is a lot of times more scary. Either that or like where you have characters that are just believers and you get behind. You start to learn why they're so deep into their convictions. Like I'm reminded of Firefly of Serenity, the movie, when she's talking about like, look, this is one bad dude, like he's a believer, and she gets into like this guy's not going away. Like you're not going to shake this guy. He's like a dog with a bone. He's not doing it out of loyalty. He's doing it out of faith. Like when you have a character like that is so convicted, that just believes in something with such depth, there's reason there. It's not just like, oh, I'm the bad guy and I'm following orders. That's flat. You know, you knock those guys down like paper targets. You know,
and don't get me wrong though. You know, there's nothing bad, even sometimes for bad villains to spend periods of time where you don't know a lot about them. But as you start building up towards that climax on that story arc with that character, you need to develop him better so it's a more meaningful thing. And that doesn't just mean have them walking into an orphanage and killing all the children.
Unless they have reason to.
But it could be.
They might have reason to.
Yeah, they could, yeah. And the reason doesn't have to be logical.
So we're coming up on the warmer weather. You should probably get on Amazon and buy some, new bathing suits and stuff, and maybe a kayak for, the water, and go have some fun. If you're going to do that, go to www.garduel.com/Amazon for all of your Amazon needs. Thank you so much for listening to the World Builder's Anvil. We would love it if you would share the World Builder's Anvil with 2 of your friends, and so would they. If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting by showing them Stitcher or iTunes, or, best of all, just send them to our website, www.garduel.com. That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.